I work for a catering service, which means I am on the road constantly, usually late at night. I spend most of my time hauling equipment from place to place in this massive company truck. It is not the worst job in the world, but the hours are rough, and it is not exactly where I pictured myself being at this point in my life. By the time I get home, I am either so wired from caffeine that I cannot sleep, or I crash the second I hit the bed and stay down for 12 hours straight. I was driving back home one night around 2 in the morning, glad to be in my own car for a change. As I got close to the house, I realized I had probably had one too many energy drinks, and sleep was not happening anytime soon. On top of that, I had not eaten in hours, and I was starving. There is a McDonald's right off the highway about 10 minutes from my place, and it is usually my go-to for late-night cravings, since it is so convenient. I am not someone who goes heavy on fast food, but sometimes there is just a specific craving that only a handful of fries can fix. It is open around the clock, so I figured some comfort food would help me wind down. I pulled into the drive-thru, and there were actually a few cars ahead of me, which surprised me for that hour on a Tuesday. While I was sitting there impatiently and zoning out, something caught my attention. There was an old beat-up Volkswagen with tinted windows backed into a spot in the far corner of the parking lot. The McDonald's was drive-thru only at that hour, so there was no reason for a car to be parked there. The employee spots were on the other side, so it was not one of them. I figured it was probably just someone eating in their car, something I had done myself plenty of times. Still, it was an odd sight. I got my food and drove off. I was not ready to go home yet, but did not want to just idle in my car either. I started thinking of somewhere to go. I live in a pretty lush area with a lot of options, but I did not want to overthink it given how late it was. There is a large nature preserve literally down the street from my house, situated on a mountain, essentially a massive forest. At the peak there is a scenic lookout point with a view of the city. There is a road that loops around the perimeter of the preserve and takes you right up to the top. After the preserve closes, the road is gated off to cars, but it is still a perfectly good walking path up to the summit. I used to go there all the time in high school with friends. It was kind of our default spot when we wanted to be outside, just to hang out and take in the view. I had not been there in a while because of work and figured a late night visit would give me a much needed hit of nostalgia. When I pulled into the preserve's gravel lot, it was completely empty. But before I could even shut off the engine, I saw headlights pulling in behind me. That alone was unsettling, since who else would be showing up here at 2 in the morning? Then I realized what I was looking at. It was the same Volkswagen from the McDonald's parking lot. I was absolutely certain of it. I parked a little ways away, and the car's engine cut off. I sat there trying to process what the odds of that were. Had they followed me? My window was cracked, and I could not hear any music coming from the other car. After nothing happened for a solid minute, my fear started to settle a little. They were probably just out for fresh air or a smoke, which was honestly a common enough reason to come to this spot. I kept telling myself it was just one of those bizarre coincidences. I still could not quite shake the feeling though, and I did not want to be out there alone. I picked up my phone and FaceTimed one of my close friends who lived a few minutes away. I told myself if he did not pick up, I would just eat in the car and go home. He was actually awake, writing a paper, he said. I convinced him to swing by and hang out for a bit, and he agreed. He said he would be there in 10 minutes. While I waited, I kept my eyes on the Volkswagen. It had not moved. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. When Sebastian finally pulled into the lot, I felt a wave of relief. We got out of our cars and started walking up the path. Just before the parking lot disappeared from view, behind us I glanced back. The Volkswagen was still there, but now all 4 doors swung open at once. 4 guys stepped out and just stood there for a moment looking at each other. Not talking, just exchanging glances. It was unsettling. I nudged Sebastian, and he caught on to what I was looking at. Before they could spot us, we kept moving up the path. Alarm bells were going off in my head, but Sebastian seemed less concerned, saying they were probably just going up to smoke. We made it to the top, and the view was enough to take my mind off things for a bit. We sat on the low stone wall at the edge of the lookout the way we used to in high school, eating and talking. It was genuinely nice for a few minutes. Then we heard voices and laughter approaching quickly from behind us. 3 guys came up the path sharing what looked like a blunt. They were acting friendly enough, which helped calm my nerves a little, but instead of finding their own spot, they walked directly over to us like they wanted to chat. The one with the blunt was covered in tattoos and had a nose ring. He looked pretty intimidating. He flashed half a smile and asked if we wanted to smoke. We both said no. One of the other guys laughed and said something dismissive, and Sebastian scoffed back at him. Then my curiosity got the better of me, and I blurted out a question about what they had been doing at McDonald's. The guy with the blunt dropped his smile immediately, and his eyes narrowed. His two friends did the same, looking at us with cold expressions. Nobody said anything for an uncomfortably long stretch. That is when it hit me. There had been 4 guys in that car, not 3. One was missing. At that point, I was already mentally preparing to run. Sebastian was thinking the same thing, I could tell. Finally, the one who seemed to be in charge told us he worked nights and had just gotten off. He pulled his hoodie down to reveal a McDonald's uniform underneath, clearly knowing we would not have believed him otherwise. He said he came to this spot every night after his shift to smoke with his friends. That explanation calmed me down a little, but something still felt deeply off about the whole situation. Sebastian could feel it too. We decided it was time to leave. As we started walking back down the path, Sebastian stopped and pointed into the trees off to the side. I followed his gaze and saw the 4th guy, half concealed in the darkness, holding something I could not identify. The moment he realized we had spotted him, he started moving. That was all we needed. We ran, full sprint back down the path, glancing back just long enough to see him chasing us with the other 3 right behind. My heart was hammering. I could hear their footsteps getting closer, but I did not look back again. We made it to the parking lot, jumped into our cars, and floored it out of there. As I was pulling away, I could see them rushing back to their car. I did not want to drive straight home in case they followed me there, so I called Sebastian and told him to meet me on his street. We had a decent head start, and I did not think we had been tailed, but I was not taking any chances. When we met up, we were still in shock. I did not know if they had been planning to rob us or something worse. Sebastian told me he had quietly snapped a photo of them while they were not looking and sent it to me. The next day, since I had the day off, I convinced him to come with me back to the McDonald's to report the employee. We found a younger worker and showed him the picture, explaining what had happened. His eyes went wide. What he told us was genuinely disturbing. Apparently, the guy in the photo had previously dated a girl who also worked at that McDonald's. She had broken up with him a few months back, and he had not handled it well. He started harassing her during her shifts and following her after work. He was fired, but that did not stop anything. Police got involved and a restraining order was put in place. According to this co-worker, he had been violating that restraining order by camping out in the parking lot. Sebastian and I were horrified. I still do not know why he decided to follow me specifically that night, but it was clear the guy was completely unstable. I am hoping the police catch him in that parking lot and finally do something about it. I just hope he does not recognize my car if he ever sees it somewhere. It has only been a week, and I have not been back to that McDonald's or the preserve since. Hopefully the situation gets handled, but at this point, that is out of my hands. I have always enjoyed late-night walks. There is something about the stillness that makes everything feel simpler. I am a welder by trade, and have been doing it for over 40 years. I live alone on a big farm, just me and my dog Bosley. The house is too large for one person, but I never had the heart to downsize after my wife Maria passed. My kids moved out years ago, and ever since cancer took her, it has just been me and Bosley. One night after a long day in the shop, I decided to go for a walk. My property is pretty big, so a single loop is usually enough to satisfy the urge to get outside. The air was cool and Bosley trotted along beside me. Sometimes I think he likes me more than I like him. I have walked that loop hundreds of times, but as I was heading back toward the house, something caught my eye. I glanced up at the second-story window, the one that looks out from the bedroom Maria and I used to share. For a split second, I thought I saw something move. I stopped dead in my tracks and stared up at that window. There was no reason anyone should be in there. I had not been in that room in years. Could not bring myself to go back in it. My blood started to boil at the thought of some stranger breaking into my home. I was not going to stand for that. I rushed inside, heart pounding, and went straight upstairs. The room was empty, just as I had left it. No sign of anything out of place. I looked everywhere I could think of and found nothing. I was pretty shaken, but more angry than scared. I figured I had just seen something that was not there. I stood in that room for a while feeling a bit foolish, but I could not shake the feeling that something had been there. The following night, I was woken up by Bosley growling. He is a good dog and never makes noise unless there is actually something to react to. I sat up and listened. That is when I heard creaking coming from directly above me. It could have been the sounds of an old house settling, but my mind went straight to footsteps. I debated going downstairs for my hunting rifle, but decided against it. I was confident enough that if it came down to it, I could handle whatever was up there. I grabbed my flashlight and went to check. Nothing. The room was exactly the same, untouched. My anger was starting to shift into something closer to anxiety. Something did not feel right in this house. The night after that, I came downstairs to find the kitchen lights on. I know for a fact I turned them off before bed. I never leave lights on. There was no question in my mind anymore. Someone was getting into my house. I called the police and told them I suspected someone was sneaking around the property. They came out and searched the house from top to bottom and found nothing. They were decent about it and told me to call again if I needed to, but I could tell they were not fully convinced. The next night was the worst by far. I could not sleep, so I decided to go back upstairs and check the bedroom again. I am not sure what I was hoping to find. Maybe I thought it would put my mind at ease. When I opened the door, I froze. Maria's clothes were scattered all over the floor. I had packed them all away after she died. Now they were spread everywhere. That does not just happen on its own. And then I saw her. A woman standing in the doorway, just staring at me. I could not make out her face clearly, but I could tell it was not Maria. She was too short. I had no idea who she was, but she had no business being there. I have never been that afraid in my life. Without thinking, I ran at her. She turned and bolted down the stairs and straight out the front door. By the time I got outside, she was gone. I searched the whole property with Bosley and found no trace of her. I did not sleep that night. For months afterward, I could barely sleep at all. I was on edge constantly, convinced I could hear footsteps from upstairs at night. Every little sound set me off. I kept my rifle next to the bed, dreading the thought that I might actually have to use it. I thought about calling my brother to come stay with me, but that is not how I was raised. You handle your own problems. The nightmare was not over though. One night I was sitting in the living room when I noticed a figure standing out in the yard, staring directly at me through the window. It was her again. My heart felt like it stopped. I grabbed my rifle and ran outside with Bosley right behind me. She was still there, just a silhouette in the moonlight, watching. I fired a few warning shots into the air to scare her off. That was enough to get her moving. She turned and disappeared into the darkness. But it did not make me feel any better. I was being tormented by some random woman who was most likely homeless, and I could not begin to understand why she had fixated on my property or on me. I stood out there for a long time waiting to see if she would come back. She did not. I have not seen her since, but I know it is probably only a matter of time. I am fully prepared to defend myself if it comes to that, but living with this level of constant anxiety is no way to go through life. Thank God for Bosley. I honestly do not know what I would do without him. I will share an update if anything changes.